So, with listenership down, I think the best way to start this podcast would be to admit our faults, because it seems that that's what our listeners enjoy.
A public flogging in the village square.
Yeah,
Great.
It seems they enjoy that. So, you want to do that?
I guess. Not really, but...
Okay, well, to start with, on a recent episode of a podcast of a friend of ours, Positivity Wolf, which they do the Watch This Movie podcast, called us cinematically incorrect.
Well, that is decidedly rude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, we should say that our namesake is a pun on the fact that we're not movie experts. And so it's supposed to be kind of funny of like, you know,
It's also alliteration where it's cinematically correct.
It's alliteration. Yeah. And it's also talking about us fighting each other because we always have different opinions. So one of us is correct and one of us is incorrect in our view. Just to say that, in case we haven't mentioned why we named it what we named it. Anyway, he likes to point out some of the things that we made mistakes. And then another friend of ours, Stork, from the Star Trek podcast.
You got it right this time.
Yes, I did it.
The first time ever that she has not said Star Wars or Star Trek.
See, it's because of my love for Stork has grown, and I have, you know, made some effort here. Anyway, so they've both pointed out some things recently that we have done wrong. So... the first thing, the reason he called us cinematically incorrect, I think I mentioned this and corrected myself at one point, but...
you did.
Since it was mentioned on an episode, I had said that Lee Whalen, I had gendered that person, how dare I, but it is a man and I had said she, so again, I am sorry for misgendering somebody, okay? Got it. You, however, have made some mistakes.
I did make a mistake. I said WWE when I meant WWF because there were two WWFs and one of them got sued and had to change. World Wildlife Foundation sued World Wrestling Federation and made them change it to World Wrestling Entertainment.
Right. Now, I think that was for the Lorax podcast?
Yes,
was that what we were talking about?
It was the environmental podcast that we did.
Yes. So, again, we do know the difference. It was a slip of the tongue, but I wanted to make sure that we corrected that. Another mistake you made personally, it wasn't a mistake per se.
It was an omission.
Stork and Positivity Wolf had pointed this out, so I want to clarify.
Matt Lewinsky, in fact.
And Matt Lewinsky, actually. So this one was a hot topic.
It was a hot topic.
So it was last podcast.
Yes. I had asked that they do a better version of the I Am Legend movie, which they have done several. I made the mistaken assumption that people were only remembering the Will Smith most recent version, and I forgot I was talking to a bunch of nerds that do nothing but watch movies. So
now, we appreciate the nerdiness because we like learning things from you guys because we're not as versed on all movies as we would like to be, which is part of the reason we're doing this podcast. But yes, I mean, you made a mistaken assumption, but you have seen other versions. I have
seen The Last Man on Earth. It's been a while, but I was aware that that was a more faithful adaptation of the book that I do enjoy. But I was just assuming that our listeners had not seen it. I know you have not seen it.
I have not.
And I was trying to keep it topical to what you were familiar with.
Right. And we were also kind of discussing more current adaptations in the respect that there are a lot of current adaptations in movies that for things that we don't need an adaptation for or remake or whatever you want to call it because it's already great. We don't need anything else. Where this movie, although there is already a great version, it is relatively old and it would be kind of interesting to see how they would do it in modern times.
That's really where I was driving. I would like them to remake bad movies rather than destroy classics.
Right. So if you want to hear what Tyler had said and see if you felt he made a mistake, it was in last week's podcast, Patient Zero.
Yes.
Okay, and then lastly was my mistake. And again, this was like a questionable thing. It was definitely a mistake, but it was like a blurred line here. So last week on my Gilmore Girls connection, I had said that Sean Gunn played Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, he didn't play Rocket, Bradley Cooper did. However, he did play Rocket as the CGI version on set. Like, he was the person that did the movements and all of that for Rocket. He just didn't voice him.
He was the face point that the actors that had to find something to look at when Rocket was on screen, because he has to be added by a computer.
Right.
So he was there.
Right, but he wasn't the voice.
He was not the voice.
Bradley Cooper was the voice. That was my mistake. I was reading through IMDb and I saw Blade Rocket. I think I saw On-Set Rocket is what
Yeah.
I read, and I just went with that. But yes, I have seen Guardians of the Galaxy, and yes, I know Bradley Cooper's the voice. That was a weird mistake that happened there.
That's a half mistake, though, because you're technically right.
Yeah, but I'll give it to you, Stork. Thank you for pointing that out. I don't want to mislead people and have them think you're going to listen to it and you're going to hear Sean Gunn's voice, because you're not. So, anyway, that's all the mistakes for now. I'm sure after this podcast, we will have more. So,
Probably. Anyway, I'm Tyler.
I'm Shay.
And this is Cinematically Correct. And
we're doing Patch Adams' movie, which
Patch
was
Adams,
my choice.
your choice.
I chose it for 2 reasons. Well, 3 reasons. But I'll talk more about my personal reason later. But it was Nurses Day is today. And the coronavirus whole thing, I wanted to do something that kind of like delved into the medical field in a positive way and not in a pandemic we're all going to die kind of way.
My bad.
Yeah. So
my bad.
So there's that. But before we like kind of really get into the movie, we have to do your beer because, got to crack that.
We do. So I braved going to the store yet again for our listeners.
The things you do.
Yeah. So this is by the brewery Clown Shoes. Obviously appropriate given it's Patch Adams and he wears red nose and clowns. Mm-hmm. It's Hoppy Feet, black IPA. Robin Williams was also in Happy Feet.
He was. That was what sold it, I think, is on this.
CGI penguins.
Right.
And then even further on the nose, on the side of the can is, our mission is to produce beer without pretension while being free and a little crazy. Which is adjacent to the real Patch Adams' philosophy on things. He wants to provide healthcare for people because it's the right thing to do, which is certainly commendable.
So crack it.
Cracking it. It's a black IPA. I'm going to hate it. But we'll see. It's actually not bad for IPA.
Wow.
I
love this expanding horizons thing.
I'll give it a 3.25.
Whoa.
Whoa. It's better than 50-50.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, this podcast is good for the soul.
It's good for my beer drinking.
It is. All right. So, do you want to give a brief synopsis of what this movie is, in case people haven't seen it?
Sure.
Brief synopsis.
I mean, it came out, 20 years ago?
Yeah, about that. 1998, I believe?
Yeah, so 22 years ago. Get on that. It's not hard. It's the real-life story of Patch Adams. Based on a true story. About a doctor by the name of Hunter Patch Adams that went to medical school and came up with this new concept for delivering healthcare in terms of connecting with your patients on a human level, because he feels that is a better way to deliver care. Because if you care for the person, then you're not just treating the illness, you're treating the person.
Right.
And it's him going through medical school, coming up with that concept, and basically that's the movie. Yeah. Done.
So normally we'll go right into characters, but I did kind of want to just kind of give a reason for doing this movie. I made the mistaken assumption that this was a well-known movie. And I learned after posting it on Twitter that not everyone has seen it. Now, it's a Robin Williams movie, which was the first reason I thought it was popular, just because,
right.
who hasn't seen, every Robin Williams movie? But, okay, But also, this movie was something that we watched in my house growing up a lot. I don't know that I saw the full movie in through. I don't know. Maybe when I was younger.
Probably.
But my brother has a heart condition and was in and out of hospitals. And there was actually a doctor that he had. I don't remember his name, but he was a big, tall guy with red hair, and we called him Bozo the Clown. And so he was very funny, and he was very, physical type person, physical humor. And that's something that I remember a lot growing up, because he would interact with me too, because I was a kid. My brother's 7 years older than me, so I was very young for a lot of this. And so this movie related a lot to our life, having that kind of a doctor. And also the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Our first trip ever to Disney World was through the Make-A-Wish Foundation for my brother, obviously. And, this movie...
I'd like to point out that your brother has beaten the odds to this point
Yes.
and is still alive.
Yes, he is still alive. He's doing well. He's doing fine. But we did have a lot of similar experiences. I mean, the Make-A-Wish Foundation was connected to this movie. A lot of the kids in this movie were actual cancer patients and got on this movie through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is a great foundation.
Yes.
And how I met Hulk Hogan, that was my brother's wish. I don't know, guys. You know, I don't even know if his wish was to meet Hulk Hogan in Disney World, because that's a hefty wish. I don't know.
Well, he had other things tied to that. Like, he had a laundry list of wishes that were tied into one wish.
Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, so this movie obviously is very connected to my personal life, so I just assumed it was bigger than it is, which
so I come from the opposite side of that, because I was in no way tied to this movie. I had seen the trailer when I was growing up. I was, 12 at the time?
98, so.
Yeah, and I had just no interest in seeing this movie at all growing up. So this is the first time I've ever watched it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we'll have different perspectives as we go along, clearly. So do you want to get into the characters?
Certainly.
So you want to start with Robin Williams, because I think you can take Robin Williams, right? You know who he is?
I would hope so.
I hope so too.
Robin Williams is a wonderful person.
We've already done a Robin Williams movie.
Yes, we have.
Dead Poet Society.
Dead Poet Society, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have that written down somewhere. Dead Poet Society, Aladdin, Hook.
Good Will Hunting.
Insomnia.
He's in a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, he's in a lot of movies. He's a wonderful actor. Obviously, he's tragically passed away, and kind of weirdly connected to this movie in that the beginning of the movie, the person he plays is suicidal. It's very sad.
It is.
But he's an amazing actor. In this he plays a doctor who is believing in holistic medicine, trying to be funny. This character is literally made for him.
Yes.
Like, it's the humor he has. It's just perfect Robin Williams.
It really is, and he was actually not the first choice.
No, he wasn't.
There were a few other people that were considered for the role. Tom Hanks.
Which, I mean, we love him.
We do love Tom Hanks. He's a national treasure, and he's a wonderful person. I just don't feel like he is the best fit for this when you could choose Robin Williams.
Right. When Robin Williams is an option, Robin Williams is
for this movie, yes. I mean, it's thankfully Tom Hanks was doing Saving Private Ryan, which we've done on the podcast already. One of our first episodes, as if it happened. So it's back when we were podcast newbies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other person that was considered for this was Bill Murray. And we've done a couple movies that Bill Murray has appeared in, mostly zombie movies, Zombieland 2 and Dead Don't Die. But while that's a better choice than Tom Hanks, which is hard to do, really, but it's still not the right choice.
No, these are all like wonderful, like amazing actors that we love, but I just think Robin Williams embodied this character really well. I
totally agree. It works better with Robin Williams in this role. I
just couldn't see it with anybody else.
He has that nice energy, but then also he can pull it back and be serious, and it's a nice duality.
Right. Okay. So other actors, the one actor that I wanted to mention that I don't even know from anything else would be Daniel London, who played Truman, which was the male, like, best friend, I guess.
Yeah.
In this, I don't know him from anything at all. I don't know if you do, but it says he was in Rent, Minority Report. It's kind of a funny story. Hollywood, Law and Order, Prodigal Son. So, I mean, I've seen Law and Order, but I doubt I've seen the episodes he's in.
I've also seen Minority Report, so I mean that would be the only thing. He's probably an ancillary character if I were to guess. But...
Right. But anyways, I mean, he just kind of plays like the encourager throughout, and the person who, when something tragic happens, is able to bring him back to his cause. So, right. I mean, that's really all he plays, right? I mean...
And before we get sidetracked, I do have a Lord of the Rings reference tied to Robin Williams.
Oh.
Before we move on too far...
Whoa.
Robin Williams was in Death to Smoochie with Ed Norton. Ed Norton was in Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom, who played Legolas in the movie.
Uh-huh. We had to do a little bouncing, but
little bouncing, but I got it.
All right. Well, anyways, the next actor is actually my connection to Gilmore Girls. This connection I actually made before I even finished watching the movie, because it's Monica Potter, And the only thing I know her from is Parenthood. In Parenthood, she is the sister... Well, no, she's sister-in-law to Lauren Graham, who is Lorelai Gilmore.
Great.
So
we're done.
That was simple. That was easy. But anyways, Monica Potter plays Patch Adams' love interest in this movie, and we will talk about the controversy revolving around that, but she is a female doctor, and she is very by the rules, and a main reason she's by the rules is because she is one of the few female doctors in medical school at the time. So it's an interesting layer to add on to a movie that is very much about activism.
Right.
So there's that. There's only 2 other people I want to talk about. Philip Seymour Hoffman, we have to mention, one, because he passed away early in life, and that's just...
within 6 months of Robin Williams in 2014.
Yes. So he plays a...
very by the book.
And kind of elitist type.
Definitely an elitist person.
The guy who's part of the establishment. His father was a doctor. He's going to be a doctor. It's like a generational situation.
It's grandfather, father, I'm going to be a doctor. My kids are going to be doctors. It's just... This is my life. It was already set for me before I was born, basically.
Right. So, and we'll talk about, his character, because there is like kind of a nuance there that we wanted to get into. But he's obviously a really well-known actor. I mean, I most recently had seen him in Hunger Games. I know you've seen him in something else.
He was in Mission Impossible. I think it was 3. It's one of the billion Mission Impossibles that they've made with Tom Cruise recently. Mm-hmm. Where he plays a very good villain. He was in Capote, which I regretfully have not seen, and it's widely regarded.
So it's going on the list?
It is on the list,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
So, yes, he's a fantastic actor.
Right. Okay, so we got through him. And then the last one I want to talk about was Bob Gunton, and that's only because he plays Dean Walcott, which is like the villain of the movie, and it's complicated that he's a villain, and again, we will be going into that whole thing. But I recognize him as a villain. Like, he played it in something else, and I have not been able to place what else he played it in. I did scroll through his IMDb.
You're killing me. It's Shawshank Redemption.
Well, again, I have not seen Shawshank Redemption. We've gone over that a million times in the podcast.
It's on the list, because you have to see that movie, and he is a very good villain in that movie.
Well, so I haven't seen it, so I don't know what I recognize him from. I know I see... He was in 24, which I've seen. He was in Daredevil, which I've seen. Elementary, which we know I have not seen.
Blacklist, you've seen some of it.
Very little of it. Everything I'm scrolling through, I have not seen. Trophy Wife, I actually did watch. I don't know why. Don't ask me. He was in New Girl, so I've seen every episode of New Girl multiple times, so maybe that. But anyway, so he plays the villain. I wanted to kind of like just put it out there. He's the dean who basically is trying to get Robin Williams to conform to what a doctor should be in his eyes.
Right. He's the very much, it's my way or the highway, I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
Kind of person. And we do the things this way because this is the way we do things.
Right.
And he's not open to change.
Right. Okay. So now that we've spent a lot of time building up to, I don't even know anything that exciting, we should talk about the fact that this movie is controversial because the real Patch Adams very strongly disliked the movie and vocally disannounced? I don't know. Disavowed. There we go. This movie. So do you want to kind of talk about some of the differences?
Well, I think, I don't think it gave him a sense of he was portrayed fairly. Even though he liked Robin Williams to be cast for the movie, I think he has the opinion that his character is one-dimensional and is just the funny doctor.
Right.
Which I can totally understand that side of looking at things because he is very much a man with a cause, and he's becoming a doctor for a cause. Right. And it's a man sure in his conviction, and there's just so much profoundly meaningful about that, and you can change the world.
Right. He said in an interview, after the movie, there wasn't a single positive article about our work or me. There was dumb, stupid, meaningless things. It made my children cry. They actually thought they didn't know the person they were reading about. And then he said, I knew the movie would do this. I would become a funny doctor. Imagine how shallow that is relative to who I am. So, I mean, you're right. He felt like he was a one-dimensional funny doctor. And that's just, it's sad because he's way more than that. He's still alive today and he's still doing a lot of great works for the medical community. And it's sad that that happened that way. But I mean, we do know that unfortunately Hollywood has a way of kind of flattening some amazing.
I can understand
stories.
his side to that, but I also very much feel that his genuine spirit was conveyed in this movie. I got the sense that he was trying to make positive change. Well, yes, he was a funny doctor, and yes, that was a big part of the movie. I do feel as though they did at least some decent job of conveying that he is wanting to bring about real positive change in the world.
Yeah, I got that too. And now, obviously, I could be biased, connecting to a doctor that was acting in the way that he acts, that maybe I kind of saw the positive change in the world. So, I could be biased in that. The other kind of thing, though, that people were upset about is that I can't find the truth here. But so people are saying that the Universal Pictures had promised to give some of the proceeds of the movie to his cause, his Gesundheit Institute. And there are controversy on whether or not it ever happened. So in the particular article I have open right now, it says the real Patch Adams didn't receive money for the rights to his story. Universal, however, did give Patch's Gesundheit Institute a grant to establish a fundraising infrastructure. This included the services of a professional fundraiser for a period of time. So
I don't disbelieve that Hollywood screwed him over in the slightest. There are numerous stories where people sell the rights or through a quirk of the system receive no money. I think Forrest Gump, the writer of Forrest Gump, to this day has not received a penny because of weird Hollywood accounting practices where they don't have a profit somehow.
Right.
I 100% believe that Hollywood screwed him.
Right. I mean, I do too. Now, what do you feel about Robin Williams not donating his funds? I mean, we can talk about exactly what Patch said, but...
Well, so I was going to mention that. So Patch Adams said that Robin Williams made $21 million to pretend to be me for 4 months and then didn't give $10 to my institute, which provides free medicine. If I were Robin Williams, I would have given all $21 million.
Right.
Which is a little bit gray because he does have conflicting comments on Robin Williams. He does find him very genuine and sincere, and Robin Williams did a lot of work with St. Jude's.
Right.
So it's kind of, while he would have liked him to give the money over, it's almost like he still likes him as a person.
Right. But, I mean, do you feel that Robin Williams should have given his entire income for this movie to the Institute, or how do you feel?
I mean, I would have personally, if I was Robin Williams in that scenario, I would have given some of the money. I don't know if I would necessarily given all $21 million, but I definitely would have donated to an organization that provides free medical care. Because what do you need $21 million for? But
it's also his money and his choice. It's
his money, his choice. That's certainly fair. I mean, half would be, I would say, reasonable, or even 3/4. But whatever I would have come up with personally, it's easy to say that not having $21 million.
Right. It's easy to say we would give the money when we don't have the money to give.
Exactly.
So it's a tough position to be in, and it's a hard thing to say. I mean, because I think also if actors get in the habit of donating all the money that they make for movies that are true stories or good causes or whatever, then what money do they then have if that's the type of movie they gravitate towards? Right. So it sets a precedent that I just don't know. I don't know what the effects of that are. I'm not in that industry. So I feel like I don't know enough to judge, I guess, is where I'm there. Okay, so the other controversy in this movie, and the biggest reason why people seem to dislike it for its plot, would be that Corinne, which is the love interest, who was played by Monica Potter, is not a real person.
Right.
The actual person who died in Patch Adams' life was a male, and it was his best friend, who does not seem to appear in this movie unless maybe he was meant to be the...
Truman?
Right. I don't know, honestly. But obviously Truman does not die, so...
I mean, I can very much understand Patch Adams having a problem with that as well, because I would feel very upset if someone was telling my story in any medium, book, film, etc., and they wrote out my best friend, or just any significant person in my life, and then added a fictional person instead.
Right.
I would be personally hurt by that.
Right.
I do think that there's kind of a flip side to that, which is the standpoint of making a statement in bringing in female doctors. You were going to talk about that.
Right. Well, first of all, I want to say that Patch Adams himself has not said that was part of his problem. Not to say it's not. It's just I have not read anything from him saying that was part of his problem with the movie. It's mostly critics of the movie saying, misgendering the person who died and, Hollywood adding in a love story that doesn't belong and that whole thing. Monica Potter, or I forgot her name off the top of my head. Corinne, sorry. Is based on his wife, who he did meet in medical school, and he did do the whole balloon thing and all of that. So she's not completely fictional. She's not just created out of thin air when he was single his whole life or whatever. That's not the case. She is based on a real person. It's just the death part. But I do appreciate that in a movie about an activist, especially someone like him, it's nice to see that they're also discussing the problems with women in medicine. So she mentions early on that one of the reasons that she has a problem with him kind of breaking the rules and all of that is because she can't break the rules. She doesn't have that luxury. He's not taking it seriously, and she's thinking he's not taking it seriously because he's a man and he has to work less to achieve the same goal. Right. And that's fair. I mean, that's fair even still today, where women do have to prove themselves a little bit more. There's a bunch of stuff I read about women in medicine. One of the things that comes to mind right now is that they were saying that part of women's education in medicine was to learn that you are going to have higher expectations as a doctor because you, as a woman, are known as nurturing and caring. And so they're going to expect more of you, where a guy can be more callous and not caring because he's a guy and he's going to get away with that, where women cannot. And that's part of their education, to understand what they're going to be faced with. The other thing, this movie is in the late 60s, early 70s, and until 1970, there was basically gender exclusion until the National Organization for Women filed a class action lawsuit against all medical schools. Specifically, the lawsuit was successful in forcing medical schools to comply to the civil rights legislation. The success was seen in 1975 when the number of women in medicine had nearly tripled. So I think it's very good timing to have something like that talked about, because I don't think we've made it fully yet with women in medicine. I do know there's way more than there were in the past, and we have seen the numbers increase from 9% to 16 to 20% to even now it's right around 50% in medical school applicants and things like that. The actual women in medicine varies based on specialties. Obviously gynecology has more, where surgery has more men, things like that. But we're working on it.
Right. It's one of those things where there's always room to improve. Until everything is exactly fair for everyone, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of sexual orientation, until everything is just fair for everyone,
right,
then there's work to be done.
Right.
And I think that's reasonable across the board.
Right.
You shouldn't be judged based off of something that doesn't matter.
Exactly. So while I never appreciate Hollywood altering a real story, I do appreciate adding something like this that's important to talk about in the medical field in here. And it does not pass a Bechdel test. I will get that out there. It does not.
My problem was, why didn't they just have his wife played by her and then also have his best friend? That would have been...
Right. And I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't know if there was, constraints on budget for having so many actors. We don't know, right? We don't have the reasons. But I just wanted to say that I do have an appreciation for her character, and I'm glad that it wasn't negated. Even if some of it was fabricated, there are important things that do need to kind of be looked at when it comes to that. And I don't think a lot of movies talk about the struggles women have in medicine. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
There are political movies, but this was kind of subtly put in, where a lot of movies hit you in the face with it over and over and over again, where Patient Zero, Meat is Murder, and then all of those ham-fisted attempts to make a statement, and it's hitting you it's just barraging you and killing you. It's horribly done.
Right. So briefly, I did want to discuss where Patch Adams is now.
Okay.
So for a while there, he was seeing patients in his home in Virginia.
West Virginia.
Oh, West Virginia, my bad. Really cool home, like really cool. But he has not been seeing patients. He has been actually doing more philanthropy type things.
Well, he's been more involved in promoting in other countries and other parts of the world his philosophy of treating the person in providing laughter as the best medicine, in addition to actually treating the medical issues that person has. He's also trying to do it with a smile on his face.
Right. So on his website, it says, from 1971 through 1983, we used our communal home as a hospital to test our ideas. From 1984 through now, we have stopped seeing patients to devote our time to raising funds to build our fantasy hospital. We cannot see patients until a proper facility is built. We are a very radical project, and most of our funding has been from friends like you. So they are going around and, dressing up as clowns and, helping people in other countries and things like that. But unfortunately, they haven't been able to get the funding to create that hospital that they want. And he is on the older side. I believe he's in his 70s.
Right.
So I'm really hoping that somebody does take that on. I think it's important to have a place that believes in both holistic as well as conventional medicine. I think there is a place for that and a need for that. But I guess we will see. Step
up, Jeff Bezos. Bill Gates is already a wonderful person. Grow a conscience.
Yeah, well, keep on dreaming. But yeah, it's a free hospital where they don't take insurance. It's just completely free. And I think there is a place for that and a need for something like that. So we will see in the future if somebody takes the idea and runs with it, or if, somebody can take on that hospital.
Doctors Without Borders is a similar concept about going to places and treating people in the undeveloped world or the third world.
Right.
So there are programs like that, but I think it's not to go full socialist, but there should be some expectation that you should not be bankrupt because you have to go to the doctor.
Right.
I think that's not an unreasonable thing to say.
But also to be said that doctors should not be expected to work for free.
No, you shouldn't be forced to work for free in any profession, really, but it's a nice idea.
It's a nice idea.
It's a wonderful idea, and it's going to take a special person to want to devote their life to doing that for free, and those people should be lauded and commended, but it's not for everyone.
Right. So now there are a few things that we kind of had, I guess, differing views on in the movie that I wanted to kind of get into. So the first thing that I can see is the fact that Robin Williams broke a lot of rules in this movie.
Yes.
And kind of the way the movie portrayed it. So, you can start, I guess.
Well, he was very much the fly in the face of the rules because he views the rules as stupid. Mm-hmm. So he's going to do what he wants to do, damn everyone else, which I can understand. It's a similar concept. It's not the same concept. It's a similar concept to not abiding by Jim Crow laws in the South and the sit-ins at the diner. Because you're not allowed to be at the diner, you have to go around back and get handed your food out of the back door, and saying that's a stupid rule. So there is that element to it, but it's at the same time it's a university that has every right to punish you for doing things that are against the rules.
Right. Freedom of speech stops at the idea, like you cannot get arrested for doing those things, but you can certainly get kicked out of school.
Freedom of speech is not freedom from consequence for what you say or do.
Right.
That's just. Freedom of speech is the government cannot send you to prison for saying something.
Right. Putting up legs of a woman and having them walk into the vagina and saying at your cervix, which was hilarious, I can totally understand getting kicked out of school for.
Well, yes, but at the same time, it's all in the name of a laugh, and he's one of the top students in the class. So it's those people, you have to know when you can poke the bear.
Right.
I guess it really comes down to how far can you push it, and some people go over the line, but then also some people toe that line and just do it because they can.
Right. Now, I do have to, because I have to at least mention that part of the things that he was getting called out for was that he was a first year going and interacting with patients. And I know that the movie portrays it as it's, he shouldn't be getting in trouble for that because he's making their lives better. He's making them happy, right. All of that. But I do kind of want to just make a note that the movie didn't do a good job about explaining why that rule is in place. And one of the reasons that rule is in place is that first year doctors are still learning. They're still, kind of getting a feel for what the diagnoses need to be, how to work with a patient, how to learn from a patient, how to interact, all of those things. And it's important that they have somebody who's seasoned with them for a lot of reasons. One being that the patient themselves does not understand that you're a first year and you don't have the ability to actually diagnose them accurately, that you don't have that experience under your belt, and they are going to be more willing to trust you because you're a doctor, and they, think, okay,
well, they don't even know the difference between doctor and med student. You're wearing a white coat, you must be a doctor.
Right. And then there's also, I understand that he was not practicing medicine when he was interacting with those patients, but there's also he wasn't with anybody. So nobody saw or what he was doing. All they know is he's interacting with patients, which can be harmful. I mean, you got to remember that there are people that will practice medicine or do it by accident.
Well,
maybe...
there's also the very dark side of things where there's the angel of death serial killers in hospitals that are unsupervised killing people. Like, that also is a problem.
Right. So these rules are in place to protect from not necessarily his type of person, but to protect from people who maybe have the best of intentions but do something wrong, to protect from the angel of death type thing, and to protect the hospital from liability.
Right.
You don't allow, in a lesser extent, a first-year teacher who hasn't had any experience, they have to go in and they have to be a student teacher first,
right,
because you have to learn how to interact with students and how to deal with special cases and all of that. You don't just throw people out into the world and say, well, figure it out.
Well, exactly.
Medicine, you can kill someone. So
it's very much like the Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams is also a doctor, a psychologist. You learned that on this page because you are studying this. Next year, you're going to think this. And then you're very susceptible to that point because a little knowledge is dangerous because you assume that you know everything because you read that one thing.
Right.
And you can be like, oh, I read about Ebola. You have one of the symptoms. You have Ebola. Well, this is Virginia, so no.
Right. So I did want to put that out there because as much as this movie to me is positive, that is a dangerous thing to allow people to believe is okay to do. There are rules there for a reason, and a lot of it is to save lives. So, also, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character. So we kind of had like a conflicted view on that. So do you want to start with him?
So his character is very straight-laced and by the books, and I, at the beginning of the movie, very much disliked his character because he was kind of a pompous dick. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have a whole lot of character depth. Later on in the movie, there's that scene where he basically has a breakdown in front of Patch Adams when he's about to quit, saying, I can do all of these things. I'm still a student, but I can outdiagnose and outdo everyone that's an attending physician here. I'm better than everyone, but I can't do this one thing because I cannot connect to this patient. I can't make Mrs. So-and-so eat. And
he puts... Robin Williams puts her in a tub of spaghetti and...
Yeah. It's one of those things where that, to me, was the turning point for his character, because I took from that he is a pompous ass and he's devoting his life to studying to be the best doctor that he can, because while that's his expected life, he also doesn't want to live with the knowledge that he killed someone because he didn't try hard enough. Like, that's a tremendous burden to bear if you went out with the frat and got drunk every day in medical school and then you kill people. Like, right. I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to be a doctor for a number of different reasons, but that is certainly one of them.
Right.
Just because I don't study. And
no, me neither. I'm terrible at it. I'm not good.
That's not my thing, and I wouldn't be able to deal with killing someone.
Right.
So.
Right. So, I think his character was interesting because it really showed the difference between an establishment type doctor and then someone like Patch Adams. And it's also the type of doctor that I would think Patch Adams nowadays would want to work with. Somebody who definitely took the conventional approach and learned everything by the books and knows conventional medicine, but also believes in including holistic ideas such as humor and things like that into their medicine. I think that's kind of where Patch Adams was going. He said that he wants to collaborate with conventional medicine to have kind of that, unified approach, which right. I think is really interesting, and it's interesting to see it in a character.
Well, it's almost that's the kind of drive that you need to provide healthcare for free. You have to have that need to be the best, and you have to have that responsibility and that drive to treat people to the best of your ability and to try to be the best that there is.
Right. 100% agree with that.
So
Okay, so the last thing I have on my list before we get to your history minute is the director. So we don't always talk about directors, but this particular director we've actually done a previous movie on. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about.
Which movie did we do?
Brian Banks.
Ah.
So this director is Tom Shadyac, I think.
Shadyac? Or
Shadyac?
Something like that.
So he actually had like a weird life event happen to him where he got post-concussion syndrome from a bicycle accident. And because of the syndrome, he gave up like all of his material things and opened a homeless shelter. And there's a quote of his, I'll read a little brief part of it, but he said, "I was already reevaluating dissonance between making all this money and being on the set with the people, the crew, many of which couldn't afford the basic needs of their family. It didn't seem fair to me." So I don't think the concussion did it, although it was definitely a crisis, and a crisis will often trigger things like this. So he was basically saying that this concussion almost gave him like a enlightenment moment, and he became very similar to what Patch Adams was, where he believed in giving and philanthropy over making money like a normal doctor would or a normal director would. And I think that's so interesting. Now, he has gone back to directing, obviously, because we did Brian Banks, and that's a more recent movie than this is, for sure. And he's well known for older movies like Liar Liar, Ace Ventura, Bruce Almighty. But he's also now a big philanthropist. I don't know why I can't say these words. But regardless, I just thought it was really interesting because he's also very hippie-like in appearance. He's got the long brown hair and just very similar to the person we're doing. So
there you go. And it fits for this movie, and it fits for Brian Banks as well. It's a very politically and socially charged movie for both of them.
Yeah, we haven't done more movies of his considering our tastes seem strange. But anyway, so I think you have a history minute.
Tyler's History Minute.
Well, I have several.
Of course you do.
So the first parts of this movie, Robin Williams is suicidal, and he's talking about his late father. His late father was a military man, served in Korea. Korea is often called the Forgotten War, which it's sandwiched between World War II and the Vietnam War. And it basically was us going over to South Korea to protect them and fight a war against North Korea and Communist China to prevent the spread of communism. And it resulted in some of the greatest one-liners from a general in history, General Chesty Puller from the United States Marine Corps. He was at one point surrounded, and someone came up and said, "Sir, they have us surrounded." And he goes, "Those poor bastards. We got them right where we want them. Now we can shoot at them in every direction." So that's a fun, uplifting thing about a horrible conflict, because war is terrible.
Yes, it is.
War is hell, as they say. Then Robin Williams also makes a very dark joke about the Donner Party with a skeleton. And for those of you who don't know about the Donner Party...
Which he's waving his arms in the air like, how could this happen? And I will say, I don't know anything about the Donner Party. So
so the Donner Party is a real-life event from the 1800s. I believe it was 1846 or so, 1847. A family, or a group of families, because it was actually the Donner Reed Party. So it was two different families, extended families together.
Like the Donna Reed?
No. Donna and Reed.
Oh, so I was like, Donner,
what? There's the Donner family and then the Reed family. Two separate families.
Okay.
And they are going to California on the Oregon Trail. And they got a bit sidetracked because they took a new established route rather than the old established route. They got hung up and then caught in the mountains in California, the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. Mm-hmm. And they were stuck there and ran out of food, and a lot of them started to resort to cannibalism to stay alive.
Yikes.
So of the 88 people that survived, or started out, only 48 of them. So it was 87 to 48 people, because they got stuck in the mountains, and a lot of them died of starvation and hypothermia. And
not dysentery?
No. Yes, the old trope of playing Oregon Trail and dying of dysentery. Yes, got it. So one of the wives, Tamsin is her name, jinxed the whole damn thing.
Oh, boy.
Earlier in the trip, she wrote to a friend and said, if I don't experience something far worse than what I have yet done, the trouble is all in getting started.
So you
don't
never say those things.
That is just asking for problems.
It's when people do that in a horror movie.
You're
just like, what are you doing?
And now you're dead.
Yeah, it's just
like,
what...
You said that, you had a shot, now you're dead.
Yeah, just...
Do you not know about tempting fate?
Does nobody learn?
It's like West Wing, Toby Ziegler. No one popping the champagne. Or one of my family friends, the dad, still blames himself to this day for popping champagne right before Bill Buckner and the World Series Red Sox breaking the curse. That didn't happen.
Oh, boy.
So it's never do that. Moral of that story. And then lastly, I wanted to give a little bit of a history minute on the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Because it was tied to this movie, and a lot of the children in this movie were Make-A-Wish recipients.
Yes, they were.
So the Make-A-Wish Foundation started in the 1980s. The first ever person was Christopher Gracious. He was the child that started it all. So he wasn't the first recipient of a Make-A-Wish, but he was the first person behind the scenes. He was battling leukemia. And his dream at the time, when he was 7 years old, was to become a police officer. Oh. So the local Phoenix area police department made him a police officer for the day.
Adorable.
And then, so his family started the Make-A-Wish Foundation with other people to give children that one bit of happiness as they struggle through a often terminal illness. Yeah. And then the most prolific Make-A-Wish celebrity is not someone that you would normally expect. Do you know who it is? Well, you do know.
I do because
I've said it several times.
You've said it a million times, but
it's actually John Cena, the wrestler,
who is an amazing man.
He keeps doing it and keeps extending his record to the point where at some point he's never going to get caught.
No, he's just.
It's insane.
That's
he's
incredible.
Done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the wishes. Because it's a cause that he believes in.
And that's amazing. That's great.
That's all I got for the history minute.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
All right. So, audience asks.
Audience asks.
I don't know what to say about audience asks. So, we'll start with a question that's actually a question, and then we'll move into the I don't know type situation. So the Oscar Real Movie podcast said, why was Philip Seymour Hoffman always a jerk character early in his career? I think of this movie as well as Scent of a Woman.
So I think that's honestly a bit of him being typecast, because he has that very affected, slow speech pattern.
I'm going to say punchable face, because he really got that too.
Well, no, it's more about his voice, in that it almost drips with elitism, which
that's what he plays in Hunger Games. He's an elitist, like, just ugh.
Well, right. It works because that's his voice, and
it's like you, the voice.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would argue that he probably has a similar experience that I do, where it doesn't sound the same in his head, and then when you listen to it, it's just like, oh
yeah,
God.
It's like, oh, please don't ever play that for me again. Yeah.
Yeah. I hate the sound of my own voice. Most people do.
Yeah.
Because it sounds completely different in my head.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's voice does, I think. I assume. So, anyway, I guess there's that. I mean, I don't really feel like I know a lot of his early career movies. I mean, a lot of the movies that I knew were later in his career, so I don't know that I have a good gauge, but I've only ever seen him play a jerk, so I guess that was his career. Okay, so this question we've debated, right? We've talked about it, but they basically said, why did Patch Adams like Senka? Now, this was from 143, who I believe is part of Drinks with Josh podcast. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure, because they usually like retweet each other, so they're connected somehow. So I did some digging into Sanka to try to figure out what he could possibly mean, and I did learn something. Decaf coffee pots have orange handles because the first widespread brand of decaffeinated coffee, Sanka, used a distinctive orange color on their cans, and it was so popular that orange became associated with decaf in general. So working in a diner, that was interesting for me to learn. The only connection I could possibly find to Patch Adams was that Sanka originated in Germany, and Patch Adams lost his father while stationed in Germany. But that's all I had. So basically it's decaf coffee.
Well, he also doesn't study and spends his time not sleeping doing his political thing, so he must have had caffeine somehow. Otherwise, he's just...
I mean, people online speculated that he did upper drugs like cocaine and things like that, so I don't know if he was known for not drinking coffee or something, or only drinking
I didn't get the reference
decaf.
because we couldn't find anything to save our life.
No, I have no idea, but I didn't want to just ignore the question because it seemed like you really wanted to know, and I really don't know. I don't know the connection.
So if someone could tell us, please, for the love of God.
Yeah, because it's bugging me, because I went down a rabbit hole trying to figure it out. But now I know why there's orange handles on coffee pots, so I feel like I learned something anyway. So, did you know that?
I knew there were orange handles on coffee pots. I didn't know the reason.
Well, right. I mean, I did too, but... Anyway, so now we know the reason. So that's what we've got for Audience Asks. Sometimes you guys ask me a question that I just can't answer. So here we are. If you guys have the answer, please tweet it at me at CinematicallyC. I'd say tweet it at Tyler, but please don't. I'll never find it. I'll never see it. So yeah, we do really need to get into those reviews because God, I don't want to talk about them. But here we are.
The reviews.
Reviews.
The film critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is 22%,
Woo!
which is freaking brutal.
Yeah, it's bad.
When I really don't think that is entirely fair.
No.
Well, yes, this is a sad movie, and yes, there's no real special effects. It's a drama. There's not supposed to be any kind of underpinning thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're necessarily driving at. Maybe they didn't like the cinematography, or maybe they didn't like...
There's a very famous review that you can talk about.
So Roger Ebert said something to the effect of, this movie does not go for tears so much as that it liposuctions them one by one without anesthesia.
Yes.
Which, it is a sad movie. I will 100% grant you that. But I didn't find it sad to that point.
No, I didn't either.
It's a melancholy, sad movie, but that real life is often sad.
Right.
There are sad moments in everyone's life. That's reality.
Right. And sometimes the saddest moments are your biggest turning points, just like it was in this movie.
Exactly. So you oftentimes know where you're going from a certain point until something happens.
Yeah.
Audience score 73, so considerably better.
Yeah, that's
and it's
more in line.
a wide disparity. I was going to go right around there at a 7, given that it's a fine movie, but it's not earth-shattering in any way.
Right.
I'm taking points because it wasn't entirely faithful according to the actual real-life person. They did change some things around. The directing was fine. The acting was better than I would expect for a lot of movies that we've done. But there's no real great moments in this movie.
Yeah, so I was going to give it an 8. So obviously I have nostalgia tied to this in my family and all of that, so I'm obviously going to have a more fondness for it. I did take points away for changing the real story. I always do that because I'm not always a fan of that, even if I can understand it. I also did take points away for the fact that they didn't kind of give a caution as to the whole breaking rules, like why that rule may be in place, made it seem like it's okay to just be callous when their lives at stake here. That, as somebody who has my entire family in the medical field, it's a little scary. So there's that. And also it didn't pass the Bechdel test, which, whatever. Nothing does. But anyway, so I gave it an 8. I enjoyed it, and
That's not true. The Hunt passed the Bechdel test.
Oh boy, wow, we have one. We have a winner. Yeah, so it's a great movie. Robin Williams is great, and it's uplifting to me to see that somebody believes in that type of thing. But there are problems with it. So that's all I got on that. We do have a movie next week that you're very excited for.
I am super excited, and I am still kicking myself for not seeing in theaters. I'm angry that I did not get to see this, and I'm going to overdose on the History Minute. It's going to be Midway.
And who recommended it?
It was Krista, I believe.
Yes, it was.
And
I think she recommended it out of the blue one day. I think she just tweeted it at you and said, like, hey, you should do this movie. Pretty sure that's how that happened.
Have you seen this movie? It's right up your alley.
Yeah.
And it was on my list to go to the theater, but we just never got around to it because we had other things at the time.
Yeah, so basically he's saying, Krista, thank you for getting it on the list, because it's very hard to get movies we want on the list. It seems like we never have spots for them. So when an audience recommend can be also something he wants to see, that
I think that cements Krista as my favorite fan and listener. I think that puts her right at the top.
Yeah, she wins. Okay, well, I mean, so Stork has to do something to...
Oh, Stork's not even close to Krista. Let's be honest here. I mean, we all know who is last, but...
I mean, I think we have different last people. I think we do.
Yeah.
But we'll leave the question there. Anyways, so if you guys want to reach out to us outside the podcast, I am at Cinematically C. Tyler is Blame Tyler CC. We do put the audience ask questions up between Saturday and Sunday. It depends on which day we're sitting down to watch a movie, usually. But so tweet at us. It's going to be midway, so if you tweeted us before then, I will screenshot it and keep it so we can, talk about it. But we have a website that I have not updated. Thank you very much for not giving me timestamps. And there's plenty of other places that were found, but Twitter is your best option. So thank you to Jake at Athos Music for our intro and outro music, and we'll be back next week with Midway.
Thank you all for listening.